So if you were one of those people who just looked at the schedule, looked at the calendar and said, Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay Bucks at the New York Giants, and said, this is going to be a blowout. I don't need to watch this crap. You missed out. Because not only could the Giants have won this game, they should have won this football game. In what, even though Tampa, has acquired Tom Brady, and he's no longer in a Patriots uniform, apparently the Giants are just his kryptonite. He just doesn't play that well against the Giants. It's weird, and this Giants team sucks. So the fact that this was a game at all was astonishing. But there's so many things in this Monday Night Football matchup, not only from the game, but from the halftime guest on the Westwood One Radio Network. We will talk about that shortly in this video. To the way the game actually played out. There's just so many things to talk about and break down that if you did miss this game or just decided not to watch it, I feel bad for you. And maybe that's one of the perks that comes with working in the business. Again, I'm Dave Ettinger. I'm an executive producer at CBS Sports Radio. So part of my job is to watch, listen, follow, do whatever it is, skim the box, whatever that you got to do to catch up on games that you either did watch or didn't watch and need to follow. It's just part of being in the business. So I'm appreciative that I got to stay on top of this game because it turned into a competitive game. Now, the Giants were leading multiple times in this football game, and the reason they didn't win, there's a lot of things. But for the most part, it's just Daniel Jones is an absolute turnover machine. All right, I never thought Daniel Jones was going to be all that good when he was drafted way too high out of Duke. He wasn't that great in college, but yes, he is an athletic quarterback. Okay, great. And he's shown some glimpses of athleticism and poise from his very first game in the NFL to where he is now. There just hasn't been any growth. And he's not completely recessing. It's just that he just continues to turn the ball over and over and over again. He has turnovers in essentially every single game that he plays. Usually, like last night, multiple turnovers. This guy threw 2 not normal interceptions, atrocious interceptions. I mean, what are you doing throwing the ball type interceptions? As I get cut off by this lovely Jeep in front of me here. And again, we take this podcast and officially turn it into Drives with Dave in the second episode. After the first episode, it was just a drive with Dave. Now it's officially Drives with Dave, the podcast. I appreciate you tuning in however you are listening or watching. You can find this podcast, Drives with Dave, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch this video as I drive home on the Dave Talk Sports YouTube channel. Dave Talk Sports presents Drives with Dave. So, back to Monday Night Football. Despite all the poor play by Daniel Jones, he actually not only gets them in contention, he scores the touchdown in the fourth quarter to bring the Giants within 2 points against the Bucks. Has a 2-point try, and I normally don't break down what happens in a specific play because you watched or you listened or you followed the game, you saw what happened. I don't need to do that for you, but this is necessary. Okay, Daniel Jones looking for Dion Lewis. Not the greatest throw. It's a little bit behind him. It's a little out route in the front right corner of the end zone. And Antoine Winfield on defense. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a Bucks fan, Giants fan. It doesn't matter. Antoine Winfield is not playing the ball. Playing the ball means you turn your head, you're reaching for the ball, you're trying to intercept the ball or knock it down, bat it down in some way. You have some awareness to where the ball is. And that's part of the requirement for not being called for a pass interference. Now, I know between me, you, your mom, your dad, everyone else in the world, nobody knows what the hell pass interference is anymore. And I get that. But the refs actually throw a flag because Antoine Winfield makes contact with Dion Lewis before the ball gets there. Again, not a great throw. But he also is not playing the ball at all. I'll say it again. This is hands down 100% pass interference. And I am no Giants fan. So I could care less the outcome of this game outside of the fact that actually had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in one of my 2 suicide picks, that with the Chiefs playing the Jets. So I did advance and survive and advance, reverse that. But I'm not rooting for any team outside of that. But this is unequivocally pass interference. And Winfield, after they throw the flag gets picked up after a lengthy discussion. And they decide, sorry, 2-point try, no good, no pass interference, essentially game over. All right, I feel bad for the Giants, but at the same time, the Giants are 1-7. How about you not put yourself in that situation by throwing 2 atrocious interceptions and letting Tom Brady and the Bucs score at will immediately off of those turnovers? So, a matchup that was on the road, a Bucs team favored by 12.5 points, winning by the narrowest of margins, almost the narrowest of margins of 2 points. Now, let's get to the halftime guest while we still have time here on episode number 2 of the Drives with Dave podcast. Mike Tyson was a guest on the Westwood One halftime show with Jim Gray. Jim Gray has written a book called Talking with Goats, I believe it's called. Mike Tyson being one of the GOATs, greatest of all time, play on words, sure, in boxing. Mike Tyson, though, is absolutely out of his flippin' mind. So, if you don't know, Mike Tyson is currently preparing, it's about a month away, pay-per-view event, I think it's going to be about $49.95 or something like that, to watch 54-year-old Mike Tyson fight, I believe, 52-year-old Roy Jones Jr. These guys are both definitely over 50. And hopefully that one of them doesn't die on TV in the ring. 2 of my favorite boxers in the ring, forget what Tyson did outside of the ring, 2 of my favorite boxers, especially Roy Jones Jr., growing up to watch. I mean, Tyson's power, what he did the first half of his career, just unparalleled. I mean, this guy, you did not want to get in the way of any of his punches. Left, right, hooks, jabs, uppercuts, it didn't matter. Get out of the freaking way. Roy Jones Jr., one of the pound-for-pound best boxers with the best hands I've ever seen. But these guys are ancient in the world of boxing, and I hope they don't injure each other or injure themselves. But Mike Tyson started answering some questions from Jim Gray at the Westwood One halftime show, and he summoned apparently the gods of war, the god of war, Ares, I guess, has summoned Mike Tyson to continue to do the thing that he loves in boxing. Those words were uttered from Mike Tyson's mouth. Yeah. Okay. We've always known Mike Tyson's been a little out there and crazy, but wow. So he also said, even crazier than summoning the god of war, Ares, actually said that if he wins this fight, it'll be a nice test to see if he can then fight the current heavyweight champ of the world, to see how his skill set matches up. I don't want to get in front of a Mike Tyson punch, but Mike Tyson is even more out of his mind than I thought if he thinks he's going to get into the ring with the current heavyweight champ of the world. That's a death wish upon a death wish upon however many drugs he's ever done in his life, and the fact that he's still standing, you should count that as a blessing. Go somewhere. So, if you didn't hear it, I don't know if it's on social media anywhere, if there's a link to it. If I can find it, I will post it on my Twitter account or anywhere I can find it. Dave Ettinger2 on Twitter or the Dave Talk Sports YouTube channel. This has been episode 2 of the Drives with Dave podcast. I appreciate you listening however you get your podcast and or watching, as I'm about halfway home, 6:36 a.m. in the East, as I commute and you join me every single morning from the CBS Sports Radio headquarters from New York City. It is now Tuesday, November 3rd. I'm not going to talk about it, but you know what today is. See ya.